There's a lot of talk about education and learning. One of the reasons for that is that if the multi-trillion euro learning and education industry in the world would spend as much money on research and development of learning or education, the aggregate amount would be 210 billion euros. Every day spent just on making learning and education more effective. With that kind of an amount of money, you get to buy a lot of talking. You get to buy a lot of research. You get to buy a lot of scientists, a lot of talk. But quite often, there isn't much talk about why we need learning, why we need education. Why is it that we have all this talk? When was the last time you actually heard someone talking about the true reason behind learning? Now, this is the reason. This is the only reason for learning. This is the only reason for education. It is happiness. Already a couple of thousand years back, Aristotle, the great Greek philosopher, came to the conclusion that happiness is the one that drives humans. It is actually a goal in itself. And not just to him, but it was also important for the likes of the Gandhis and even us. If you ask yourself really what your aim is, and I think that your aim, your goal, your target in life is to every day be happy. So happiness is actually the ultimate outcome of human life and humanity. Now, Ubuntu is a concept that is from the southern parts of Africa. Ubuntu means humanness. It means the philosophical thinking is that every one of us is interconnected, so that we all make this world. There's something bigger, something larger than life. And here is when it becomes a bit spooky, because life, in its current form, the only life that we've seen in the universe is actually something that is within every one of us. Because since the first cell was divided billions of years ago, life itself, even though those cells have divided and become the creatures we are, become the nature that we see outside, life itself has never died. We, you, me, are all the same. And life and happiness are the goals that should be spread. Yet, we Finns don't see a reason for us behaving like that. Because we live in a small spot in the world. This is what Finland is to the rest of the world. Our nation represents 1,200th part of the world's population. Yet, it could be our goal as a nation to spread the idea of Ubuntu through learning to reach to everyone. Because currently our world does not live as we would all share the same life. We have war, we have terror, we have hunger, and we have global warming. There's lots of these big problems that we can't solve. But as we people remember comfort zones, we want to be happy. We don't want to have the bad conscience of seeing problems we can't solve. So we even give them a name, wicked problem. These wicked problems represent something that we can't solve. And it's okay not to solve these problems because they're so wicked. Well, that's lazy. I think that the world can be saved because the destiny of the world is in our hands. There's end of the world predictions. Already in the 1970s and 1980s, there's actually a Wikipedia page for the end of the world predictions. Here you can see what date the world is going to go down under, what's going to happen. And so are we doomed? I don't think so. The great man Nelson Mandela said that education is the most powerful tool to change the world. And I think, I know that this is the truth. And I think that we all share the same thinking. Now, another quote that is circulating somewhere around on the internet is that We should change the world one learner at a time. Remember all the research that we get with the 200 billion euros every year? There's lots of individuals who say, well, let's learn one learner at a time. Now, the challenge with that is that development is rather slow. Though here, you see every generation learning double the amount that their parents learned. So this is actually a really, really rapid progress. But the challenge of today is that the world changes really, really radically fast. And it takes a decade from new research, from noticing new things, it takes a decade to enter the classrooms. And there's a lot of stuff happening in that decade. Like, for example, in 2005, when people were waiting for the announcement of the new Pope, look at this picture. You see in the picture the crowd waiting to hear who the new Pope is. How many mobile devices do you see here? And how many mobile devices do you see here? So the nature of 2013, the way our world already worked 2 years ago, hasn't yet made its way into the classroom. We tell people to shut down their mobile devices when they're doing their learning. Shut down the mobile device. The world is so much more complex that today's learning doesn't actually solve the wicked problem. And if we look at wicked problems, who would be the best to define them? The Club of Rome, who already in the 1970s clearly outlined that in the 2030s, our Western society will cause this world to collapse and the end of humanity. Well, that's not true. We can solve it by learning, one learner at a time, right? Well, we apply this on the changes that the Club of Rome predicts, and we see some change, but not that much. So we should do something more radical. But what would that radical be? Or are we doomed? Let's look at the United States as a society and see that luckily we're seeing exponential change in those societies. See that something starts when everybody learns that it is not bad for women, for example, to vote. When the surroundings, when people get to know that, wow, people are happier when women can vote, it's okay for women to vote, then all of a sudden we see this exponential development. Things start really accelerating. And that is something that proves that our world, the wicked problems can be solved through learning. Now, how do we do that? In today's world, we quite often have 20-something people sitting in a room learning one thing. And if there's a crowd and you're looking and you're learning this one thing, it gets quite boring, right? Well, we should actually create exponential learning. Learning that would be something that actually would solve problems. And I tell you that I believe it's really simple. We could start today. We just give these people access to all of that boring information that is already well explained on the internet. Khan Academy, on Coursera, on Udemy, on Funzi, on Iliademy, whatever. Give them access and enable the individuals. Instead of having 20 individuals learning one thing, have one individual learn those 20 things that they really want to learn. Give them access to new tools. Give them access and allow them to learn the things they want to learn. Because the outcome of such a society would be happy people who would be doing the things they love and loving the things they do, and they would depend on collaboration because they would only be doing the things they themselves know how to do. Now, let's call that. Let's give it a slogan, and the slogan is changing the world, lots of learners at a time. I mean exponential learning. The learning outcome should be something like this, because the outcomes are exponential, right? And if we apply this on the wicked problems of the Club of Rome, we see one thing. We have solved the problems facing us. And allow us to be happy. Remember, the ultimate goal in life, to learn and to be happy. The best thing about this is that there's no one and nothing stopping us from starting right here and right now. Thank you.